Salut YouTube et bienvenue dans ce nouvel épisode de Kingdom Come Deliverance. Alors, plein de choses à dire en ce début d'épisode. Première chose, j'ai commencé à record cet épisode une première fois, mais le jeu a craché pratiquement immédiatement, donc je l'ai relancé malheureusement. J'avais pas sauvegardé, donc j'ai dû retourner voir Hans pour débuter la quête du muscle infini de je sais pas quoi là. Deuxième chose, en fait le mec est pas du tout, le charlatan n'est pas du tout à Saison. Il est bel et bien à l'Edechko, voilà, il est là. Troisième chose, on m'a dit sur le forum d'HFR que depuis la 1.7 et la 1.7.1, donc en gros depuis les DLC, le jeu gérait le brouillard volumétrique de base. Malheureusement, j'ai pas trouvé de preuve de ça, ni dans aucun patch note, que ce soit sur le forum officiel, sur Twitter, sur le Reddit officiel, sur les forums de Steam. Aucun patch note ne fait mention d'un brouillard volumétrique, et quand je le désactive via la console de commande ou le fichier .cfg, ça change rien par rapport à d'habitude, c'est-à-dire qu'il n'y a pas du tout de... Moi en tout cas, j'ai pas de brouillard volumétrique nulle part. J'ai fait le tour de la map, rien trouvé. Si je le désactive, il n'y a pas de brouillard volumétrique. Voilà. Donc, je sais pas. Peut-être qu'il faut le virer tout simplement du fichier CFG pour que ça s'active. Bon. J'attends d'en savoir plus, mais je ne retrouve pas de traces de ça. Donc voilà. Et concernant le mode tournoi, il n'y a pas du tout de... Alors il y avait des histoires comme quoi il y avait une quête associée qui durait plusieurs heures et tout. Non, il n'y a rien du tout, c'est juste la quête qu'on a fait avec le Pierre le Noir, il n'y a rien d'autre que ça. En revanche, il y a un tournoi tous les 7 jours, donc je vais le faire. Je pense qu'il doit y avoir un loot quand même. Il doit y avoir l'armure des seigneurs de l'Épa à choper, je pense. À chaque fois que tu gagnes le tournoi, je pense que tu peux gagner une pièce. Donc là, on a gagné les gantelets. Je pense qu'il doit y avoir les jambières. À voir, j'espère. Hein. J'espère. Parce que les gantelets des seigneurs de l'Épa, ça n'était pas dans le jeu auparavant. J'en suis presque sûr. Donc on va... Ce que je pourrais faire, c'est... pour m'en assurer, ce que je ferais pour m'en assurer d'ici là, si on finit le DLC de Capon avant d'avoir un deuxième tournoi, ce que je ferais, c'est que en record évidemment, je ferai un coup de console de commande add all item et je verrai s'il y a une armure de Seigneur de l'Épa complète, auquel cas je persévérerai en vidéo pour avoir l'armure complète de manière légite. S'il n'y a pas, c'est qu'il n'y a pas de récompense supplémentaire, auquel cas on se cassera pas le cul et on confirmera que le mode tournoi c'est de la merde. Bon écoute, on verra bien. C'est un peu décevant là en mode tournoi quand même. Bon, il est où le micheton là? Il est là au bord de la... Ah il a un stand directement. Parfait. Bonjour Michel. Comment vas-tu?
Well, who have we here?
Ah, the prodigal son returns. I knew you'd come back to me one day.
Let me guess, you saw it in a dream?
I knew you were going to say that.
I had a dream of my own.
You too? So you learned something from me after all?
Yeah, it was just when I was getting pummeled by a mob of very irate villagers.
That unfortunate misunderstanding. What can you do?
Misunderstanding, yeah. I tried to explain that to them, but they were too busy kicking my arse to listen. I've heard you know of some irresistibility potion or whatever it is.
Naturally! Musk of infinite allure! An age-old recipe, maybe even older. Tested by Moses himself.
Moses?
How do you think he managed to get his people to follow him through the desert for 40 years? It's extremely potent.
Yeah, so it would seem. How much do you want for it?
Who do you take me for? The wisdom of the ancients isn't something that's bought and sold in the marketplace. Did Jesus charge for his miracles? But since you ask, how about this much?
Putain, c'est pas donné, Michel. Hein.
That's not much.
Really? All right, double then.
Va te faire enculer, tu vas prendre un coup d'épée.
Why? You... Oh, why do I even bother?
Ah, dis, donne-lui ses 4000,
If you
j'en ai rien à
like,
foutre.
I can mix the elixir for you in exchange for a small favor.
Oh, not again.
Now, is that any tone to use with your master? For shame.
Apologies, Master. I was carried away by my thirst for knowledge.
I understand your impatience, but the way to wisdom is narrow
Qu'est-ce qu'il va
and
me demander de faire, ce
arduous.
connard
And leads
encore
out the window.
Alors, à quoi est-ce que je peux être utile?
So what is it you want from me now?
Ah, my dear apprentice, everything's gone to the devil. I'm living from hand to mouth, sleeping on straw, and the local peasants won't buy from me. They say they don't trust me, as if I was some kind of charlatan. Can you believe it? Does this look to you like the face of a swindler?
Tout à fait.
I'm an honest trader in sacred goods, whose only concern is the welfare of troubled souls.
A regular good Samaritan.
And any time now the slanderous gossip will spread here from Saison. I should leave before things get worse. But I can't go anywhere until I've made a bit of coin. So what's needed is to give the locals a bit of encouragement, to open their hearts and purses.
I'm not going to go around beating people for you.
What do you take me for? I wouldn't hurt a fly. Violence is for the dull-witted. We must gently demonstrate to them the necessity of buying my remedies. For example, to ward off a revenant.
Revenant? What revenant?
Ça pue la
The
légende, là.
dead return from the grave. A corpse that the soul is unable to depart from, which wanders among the living, filled with rage at its wretched fate.
Yeah, I saw something like that once. But it was just some drunk going home from the tavern after losing all his money at dice.
Don't make light of such things. Now tell me, do you know how to deal with a revenant?
Ah, là... L'incendie, il pissait dessus.
A silver arrowhead through the skull?
Novel, but it would certainly be a lucrative trade. You are my trained apprentice, but the ignorant villager is entirely at a loss how to deal with such dark forces. It is our sacred duty to prepare them for such threats.
And how do you propose to do that?
Well, they're all doubting Thomases. They need proof. We'll need a grave, an empty grave that we can use. There's one along the way to Saison, but it's got one minor shortcoming.
What's that?
Well,
Elle est
it's
pas
not
vide.
entirely empty.
Not entirely. What does that mean?
You have to dig it up first.
Why this particular grave?
The locals don't like to talk about it, so it's surely got some sinister past behind it. And in places like that, revenants sprout up like mushrooms after rain.
Well, if that's how it is, we could open old wounds. That could easily set people against us. Again.
Then it would be best if no one could connect us to it, wouldn't it?
But that's a sin.
Refusing to help the needy is also a sin. I haven't had a decent meal for 40 days and 40 nights.
My conscience is clear where your stomach is concerned. Disturbing a grave is a grave sin.
Grave is not in hallowed ground, so That's hardly worth one Lord's prayer in penance. I asked a
Quel
priest
fils
once,
de pute.
just out of curiosity.
I'll need a spade then.
Yes, dig it up and remove the remains, leaving no trace.
And what am I to do with the remains?
Keep them. Human remains are always handy to have around.
Great. And how do we spread the word of this revenant?
There's a gossip in every village. Here, too, a woman who'll spread news quicker than a dozen messengers on the fastest steeds.
Where does this woman live?
The last house on the left, on the road to Saison. She was the first person I met here, and by the time I reached the village green, I already had a mob looking suspiciously at me. The rumour-mongering fishwife.
And what am I to tell this gossip?
All you have to do is casually mention the empty grave, and before evening, I'll wager the whole village will know about it.
And that's all?
Not quite. You should ask her who was buried there. So we've got a story to work with.
So, dig up the grave, talk to the gossip.
And the remains. Don't forget to remove them. Otherwise, no one will believe in the revenant.
I might have known any task for a capon would turn into some insane escapade. Grave robbing. Jesus.
Parfait, c'est absolument parfait. Creuser la tombe. Je dirais ça parce qu'il est vraiment... il a vraiment trop une tête de con avec ça. Ok, donc faut que j'aille creuser la tombe. Où est-ce que ça se trouve? Sur la route de Saison. Avec la souris, Michel, ok, c'est là-bas. Ok. Donc le bord de la rivière, et dès que j'arrive, la croix mémoriale au-dessus, ok, d'accord. Où t'es, cheval? C'est quoi ce bruit de ouf? What the fuck?
Is someone there?
But... C'est quoi ce merdier, Michel? Mais... Ah. C'est le chien qui fait ce bruit-là, d'accord. Donc il y a un délire. Ok. Et il y a un drôle de truc dans le jardin, j'avais jamais fait gaffe à ce merdier là. Écoute, c'est peut-être pour plus tard, j'en sais rien, mais ça fait un choc quand tu passes à côté, tu sais pas si c'est un bug ou quoi. Ah putain, le jeu est possédé, il part complètement en burne.
Yeah.
Putain, mais j'avais jamais fait gaffe, il y avait un... Putain, j'ai 600 heures sur le jeu quand même. Hein. J'avais jamais fait gaffe, il y avait ça là. Oh, ardent, oui, je prends. Oui, mon cheval, il est là. En plus, j'ai découvert le truc. Ok, donc je suis là, donc il y a encore du chemin à faire. Putain, le jeu il part en burn à voile. Qu'est-ce que c'est que ce chien là qui... C'est ici, non? Dans ce coin-là? Ça doit être au-dessus, là, ou... Ouais, c'est ça. Elle est là. Mais j'ai pas de pelle, t'es sérieux, Michel? Normalement, j'ai une pelle, qu'est-ce qu'il me raconte? Non, non, oh non, mais t'es sérieux? Oh là là. C'est la deuxième fois. Mais normalement j'ai une pelle. Comment ça se fait que j'ai pas de pelle avec moi là? La putain de toi. Oh là là. Ah non mais normalement j'ai une pelle avec moi. Qu'est-ce que c'est que ça là? Putain mais c'est pas possible. Ou alors en faisant du tri un jour dans le... Dans le merdier j'ai foutu la pelle dans le coffre. Écoute, on va aller voir. Putain.
Rabbit paws of all colors, shapes and sizes. What were you doing? There's people
Ta gueule. Autant la première fois, d'accord, je l'avais oublié, là, je suis pas d'accord. Je vais en avoir au moins 200 des PL, qu'est-ce qu'il me fait? Ah putain. Bon bah c'était moi le connard.
No luck at dice? Rabbit paws of all
Oh là Michel. Ah je crois qu'il est peut-être bien décédé le... Il a pris le colonel de plein fouet. Ah le streaming il y a du mal là. Normalement c'est une des forces du jeu. Alors moi j'avais jamais eu de problème de streaming. Là par contre ils ont... Il est bien signalé qu'ils ont... Bon après des fois il y a des petits ratés mais ils ont précisé qu'ils avaient amélioré le streaming de texture encore. Bon. Moi j'avais jamais eu de problème avec ça. Ok. On prend le thorax, la main, l'humérus, le fémur et le crâne. On n'a plus rien, Michel. Hein. Ok, bon. Elle est où la commère sur la route de Saison? C'est elle. Ok. Oh non, c'est à cet endroit-là qu'il y a un souci de streaming. Écoute, c'est pas très grave. Oh là là, oui. J'avais pas de problème comme ça avant. Hein. Non, ça va être cette maison-là. Là. Oh, c'est laquelle des deux? C'est pas toi, c'est toi.
God be with you, good wife. Has something happened here?
Heavens no. It's quiet here, unlike some other places.
And what about that empty grave?
What empty grave would that be now?
The one beyond the village, alongside the road to Sassau. Just by the river, on the Pine Headland.
How would you know it's empty? Unless it was dug up.
Oh, it's dug up all right. Freshly. And empty. I saw it with my own 2 eyes.
Lord in heaven, what in the name of...
How come it's not in hallowed ground anyway? Only unrepentant sinners are buried like that. Usually.
I don't like to say. It's an old wound that's best forgotten.
Whose grave is it?
Well, once a long time ago there was a young charcoal burner living here with his wife. There was always a lot of charcoal burners here, but this fellow worked alone. That's not an easy job for one man.
Well, no one wanted to work with him or what?
Oh, he was a hard-headed fellow who always wanted to take care of his family himself.
Well, I can understand that. It's always better to work for yourself than break your back for someone else.
His wife was expecting, though no one knew it yet. And he wasn't doing well at all. Soon enough, they had nothing to eat. And so he took to thieving.
Well, thieving is wrong.
Aye, but when there's a child on the way and your wife hasn't the strength to get out of bed for the hunger, well, you ought to think differently.
And did he get caught?
Well, at first it was just a few eggs going missing from people's hen coops. But then it was anything that wasn't nailed down. And in the end, they caught him.
And I suppose he was harshly punished for it.
Even then he didn't let on why he was doing it. They whipped the skin off his back and banished him from Leditchko.
So justice was done then?
It wasn't enough for some folk. When the butcher found out he'd never get any compensation, he wanted them to chop off the charcoal burner's hands. If the bailiff hadn't talked sense into him, he'd have done it himself with his cleaver.
Well, he got off lightly enough then.
And in the end, he got what was coming to him, and more.
The butcher caught up with him?
No. It was the mills of God turning slowly but surely. His wife bled to death in childbirth, and the child died with her.
God have mercy on their souls.
Amen.
Nothing could have been done to save them.
There was no one there. He had no one who would care for his wife. They say on that day he parted ways with God forever, and he turned his back on the village too. I reckon he never forgave himself, nor us either.
The Lord moves in mysterious ways. But how did he end up?
Don't ask me that, lad. I beg you.
Come now, good wife. You can't leave the story unfinished.
I said no. Will you let it lie?
Ok. Où est mon cheval, Michel? J'espère qu'ils vont pas me demander de tout raconter parce que je t'avouerai que j'ai pas lu. J'ai des... Putain, le chien qui fait un bruit de ouf là. Je suis extrêmement intrigué.
God be with you.
I know who was buried in that grave. A young charcoal burner.
So begins the tragic tale of the young charcoal burner who became entangled with the devil himself.
Oh, don't start. What devil? I'm trying to tell you. Ugh. He was from Ledetchko. He was trying to eke out a living for himself and his wife, but he couldn't manage. When she fell pregnant, he took to stealing.
Pride drove him from the straight and narrow path, and soon he sold his soul to the devil to fill his stomach.
They caught him and punished him, but some of the people he'd robbed didn't think it was enough. Then when his wife died in childbirth, and the child too, he blamed everyone for it. Even God, apparently.
But when the time came to pay his debt to hell, the devil had no use for his soul, and took his wife and child instead. The charcoal burner cursed God, who struck him down in righteous vengeance. But the dead man's soul never left his body. He came back as a revenant, to vent his rage at God and men and take vengeance on the living.
Jesus, did you listen to what I said at all?
Sorry, did you say something?
Oh, never mind. What do you want me to do with it?
The question is, What would the Revenant do to get revenge on the villagers? Well, apprentice?
What about his wife and child? No doubt he'd want to avenge their death.
How did they die?
In childbirth.
And when his love turned to rage, the water turned to blood. Nothing too original, but it's tried and tested. If you do it at the baths, everyone will hear of it.
How am I supposed to do that? It might be a bit suspicious if I'm seen walking around with a pail of blood.
No problem. There's a certain potion that will do the trick easily.
He was stealing food from people, right? So, supposing he started again.
We should steal from people? Disgraceful. Have you no shame?
Maybe just a few eggs from hen coops, like the gossip mentioned.
Well, that wouldn't be too serious a sin. Will they put it down to the Revenant, though?
They would, if I put some charcoal there instead.
And their nourishment he turned into ash.
The gossip mentioned the butcher. It seems he was infuriated that the charcoal burner's punishment was too lenient.
And the Revenant spoiled their meat with his malign touch.
How's that?
Spoiled meat is a classic example of a Revenant's power.
I thought it was the work of bad butchers.
That too, sometimes.
So, I should switch the good meat for bad at the butcher's. What about the butcher woman?
What about her?
Her conscience was troubled on account of her man and she couldn't sleep. But I helped her, so she's found some peace.
Ah, merci.
No problem then.
What? I'm supposed to scare the wits out of her and start all over again?
All right, if you can find some other solution, you don't have to switch the meat. But I wouldn't worry about her. But make sure it's the same kind of meat. Not even a Revenant will turn a cow into a chicken.
Ah, c'est intéressant ça.
He
Je suis curieux
cursed
de voir
God.
ce qu'on va pouvoir faire.
That's very serious.
What is it that most brings God to mind?
They don't have a church there. But everyone will have a rosary. I can't think of anything else.
That's it! If folks start losing their rosaries, they'll have sleepless nights over it.
You want me to steal rosaries? But that's...
Or just exchange them.
for what?
For nothing.
Great.
So,
Non, je
switch
volerai pas,
eggs for
par contre.
charcoal, switch the meat, color the water in the baths, and switch the rosaries. That ought to do it. I hope so. Of course, if you come up with anything else, don't let me hold you back. Talking to people might give you ideas. Traders, the bailiff.
Well, what if someone sees me in the act?
They mustn't. Otherwise, it'll end up like Saison all over again. Don't draw attention to yourself, or they'll put two and two together.
Sure. I'll keep my head down. And how will I know if I've succeeded? I doubt it'll be announced on the market square.
I'll be the first to know. They'll come running to me for a remedy, like hens at feeding time. Off you go and raise hell.
But whatever he did, don't you think he deserves some peace?
Dear Henry, after all the poor wretch went through, I'd say he's beyond any peace.
Well, he certainly won't have any as long as I'm carrying his bones around with me.
Ah, but you know who those remains could help.
Help? Who? How?
Me, of course. And I'd pay you a nice price for a revenant's bones.
But there is no revenant.
Not yet. What do you say?
Maybe I should bury him somewhere else.
What are you saying? That would be such a waste. Anyway, if someone saw you, the whole game would be up.
Well, supposing I do it later, when the fuss has died down.
All right, if you must. But I don't know what you hope to get out of it.
At least the poor wretch will have peace at last.
Maybe. As long as you bury him in hallowed ground. Otherwise, you're wasting your time.
Like in Rat-Eye, maybe?
Well, that's probably the nearest. That gossip-mongering crone would know.
True, I could ask her.
If you must. But for heaven's sake, don't even hint to her what you're up to. Good luck then.
Eh ben, je m'attendais pas à ça. J'ai beaucoup de choses à faire. Alors, oh là là. La couleur de l'eau au bain. On va faire une petite sauvegarde ici. Hein. Voilà.
Welcome, Henry.
What's that?
Hey, is someone there?
What's that?
Ok, donc je suis dans le coin.
That sounded like...
Someone there? Powder made of the bones of...
Déjà, est-ce que j'ai quelque chose Ah, je ne sais pas ce que je dois mettre. Brasser la potion pour colorer l'eau. Alors, je vais peut-être retourner voir l'autre Michel là parce que j'ai pas.
Problems with stomach ulcers? Buy my potions made from magical herbs plucked from the flanks of...
What's the recipe for that potion you were talking about?
You mean for coloring the water? Ah, well...
Well,
Pay close attention now.
I'm all ears.
How love turned to bloodshed. Once there was a knight who, though upright and noble-looking, had a prickly, unapproachable appearance. He fell in love with a fragile young maid, whom he saw with her sisters in a field, all wearing bright red wimples. But he was afraid his prickly exterior would frighten her. So he asked the advice of another knight, a pious and learned crusader, who carried the name of the patron saint of his order with pride. The pious knight told him he would arrange a rendezvous with the maid. All three would drink wine together by the river, and he would help his friend to get acquainted with her. This they did, but the maid fell in love instead with the pious knight. The stern knight was enraged and challenged his rival to a duel. The two fought long and fiercely, but they were equally matched. And so, in the end, they both fell mortally wounded, anguished at the tragedy her beauty had caused. The young maid took a dagger from one of the knights and plunged it into her own heart. Their bodies lay together on the ground, and the blood flowed from them into the river, turning the waters crimson.
I thought you were going to tell me the recipe, not some fable.
It is the recipe. I mean, the recipe is concealed in the story.
What on earth for?
Du vin, connard. Oh là
So I
là.
don't forget it.
All right. So what does it mean?
I can't remember.
Great. So if you don't know, who does?
You'll figure it out, my loyal apprentice. I remember there are 3 plants in the story.
Ah, c'est ça, d'accord.
But that's about all. But I know it was a simple recipe. It should be enough to grind the ingredients and brew them together for one turn. So, all you have to do is work out what the ingredients are from the story.
Sure. Why make things simple if you can complicate them?
Bah oui. Bah refais-moi la machin.
What's
là,
the recipe
redis
for
la
that
moura.
potion you were talking about?
Pay close attention now.
Ok.
I'm all ears.
How love turned to bloodshed. Once there was a knight who, though upright and noble-looking, had a prickly, unapproachable appearance. He fell in love with a fragile young maid, whom he saw with her sisters in a field, all wearing bright red wimples. But he was afraid his prickly exterior would frighten her. So he asked the advice of another knight, a pious and learned crusader, who carried the name of the patron saint of his order with pride. The pious knight told him he would arrange a rendezvous with the maid. All three would drink wine together by the river, and he would help his friend to get acquainted with her. This they did, but the maid fell in love instead with the pious knight. The stern knight was enraged and challenged his rival to a duel. The two fought long and fiercely, but they were equally matched. And so, in the end, they both fell mortally wounded. Anguished at the tragedy her beauty had caused,
Bah je m'excuse
the
Michel,
young
mais
maid took a dagger from one of the knights and plunged it into her own heart. Their bodies lay together on the ground, and the blood flowed from them into the river, turning the waters crimson.
ouais.
About that recipe.
Yes, you want to buy it?
Ouais, je vais pas mettre 4 minutes, je vais déjà faire son histoire là.
So, how am I doing so far?
What? You've already started?
That's still not enough.
You've hardly... Farewell.
Alors je dois être très con, mais il me parle de 3 plantes, mais au mieux il y en a une, de la guimpe, je sais même pas si ça existe, j'en sais rien du tout. Moi j'aurais dit tout bêtement foutre du vin dans la flotte et puis c'était bon. Hein. Il est où l'aubergiste de ses morts?
May the Lord watch over you, Henry.
I'm honored that you should.
Oui, t'as raison.
What's happening around here?
Nothing much, thank God. Take care now.
Voilà. Moi je vais foutre du vin dans le merdet, ça va aller très très vite. Hein. Même si ça va se diluer évidemment, mais...
Who's there?
Can I help?
Well, I could do that, all right.
What's that?
What are you staring
Looking for
at?
someone?
The baths are for pay. What are you gaping at? Have you paid? No? Then get lost.
Has something happened? My God, what are you doing?
What the? He's
Stop
stealing!
it,
Ah mais
Watch out, a
niquez-vous,
thief!
Help!
Go!
Non mais justement faut vraiment faire quelque chose de bien particulier.
Help! Arrest that thief!
I see a thief! What do you want here? Pop it.
Don't
Ok, donc
move
faut
a
vraiment aller
finger.
là, voir
Surrender.
y aller de nuit.
Committed a violation. You're under arrest.
Ah oui, oui, eh oh Michel, oh, oh. Détends-toi.
Someone saw you steal. This definitely won't come cheap.
Just my luck. Look, I can't tell you anymore. The fate of the whole empire hangs in the balance between King Wenceslas and King Sigismund. High politics, you know? Not a peep to anyone.
Well, I thought... That is, I had no idea. If that's how it is, of course you may go.
Voilà, tu fais bien. Bon,
Sprinkled with the bloody tears of Saint James.
m'a pas l'air simple cette mission. Alors il me faut du charbon déjà. Est-ce que j'ai du charbon moi? Et il va me falloir de la... J'ai pas de charbon. Hein. Mais j'en ai peut-être. Et il me faut aussi de la viande avariée. Ils vendent pas de la viande, le Michel, là?
God save Henry.
May the Lord watch over you.
L'agneau cuit. Ah, mais l'agneau cuit va pas... Oui, par exemple, vends-moi ça. Un seul va suffire. Ouais. Voilà. J'ai pas du charbon aussi dans mon merdier là. J'avais du vin. Hein. J'ai pas de charbon. Va falloir que j'en trouve. Ça va pas être simple.
Tell me, is Alois still haunting you?
No, he's gone forever. Ever since I let go of my old secret and made amends with God, I've felt as light as a feather. I sleep like a newborn baby at night. Thank you 100 times over, Henry. God be with you.
Donc la viande de lièvre. Putain, ça va pas être simple, Michel. En gros, faudrait... Putain, ça va vraiment pas être simple. Ouais, c'est de la viande de lièvre, va falloir la remplacer, putain. Ça va pas être commode de faire ça, en plus, va falloir faire pourrir de la viande.
Good day, Henry.
Putain, ça va pas être simple, ça va être rigolo en tout cas. Où je pourrais acheter le truc, mais j'ai tellement envie quand même de faire le con. Faut aussi que je vole des chapelets aux gens, oh là là. Bon, on va déjà... Attends, je peux pas parler au bailli, tiens.
I hope I can be of help to you, knight.
You look a bit worried, bailiff.
How can I not be? What with the whole village complaining about ghosts?
Ghosts?
An empty grave that they say a revenant crawled out of. They talk of nothing else.
You don't think there's any truth to it?
No, it's nothing but old wives' tales.
But how come the grave is empty?
You don't need any magic to dig up a grave. A spade will do.
But why would anyone do that? Surely no God-fearing Christian would dig up the grave of some poor soul who hasn't even got the piece of hallowed ground to rest in.
A God-fearing Christian? No.
So you suspect someone?
Could be. There's been a band of good-for-nothing itinerants hanging around recently. They weren't making any trouble, though, so I let them be. But this is going too far.
How do you know it was them?
Who else would it be?
What about the Revenant?
Oh, don't you start. That revenant of yours is nothing but idle hands doing the devil's work. I'd send them packing myself if I had the time and the men.
Supposing I help you get rid of them.
You look like you know how to handle yourself.
You bet I can. It wouldn't be wise to fool with me.
I don't doubt it, but I don't want any bloodshed in my parish. There's enough trouble already with one long-dead corpse.
Don't worry, Master Bailiff. I'll be the very soul of discretion.
Then I'll gladly accept your help. Is there anything you need to know?
Moi ça me fait marrer, le mec qui s'occupe des revenants il y croit pas, mais t'as un chien qui qui aboie d'une façon extrêmement suspecte. Ça ne dérange personne. Bon, écoute.
Who are these people?
Just some itinerants who'd rather roam the roads than do an honest day's work. They're not cutthroats, though, just petty thieves and beggars.
What are they doing here?
Damned if I know, or where they came from. Except for one fella who's from Ledechko. But the rest are from God knows where.
Putain, mais il me rend ouf,
Are
le
they
clébard.
As much as any thief. Who isn't these days?
Where can I find them?
Last I heard, they were a bit away from the village, across the river by the old mine.
That's all I need to know. I'll get going.
Good luck. Good luck to you.
Très bien. Où est-ce qu'ils sont? Ok, c'est ces mecs-là. Très bien. Écoute, on ira. Au prochain. Et bien, il y a énormément de choses à faire dans cette sous-quête. Écoute, bah, on continuera ça au prochain. Je peux pas croire que ce soit un bug, le clébard. Hein. Franchement. Non, parce que lui marche. Je peux pas croire à un bug. Écoute, on verra au fur et à mesure des événements. Voilà. Salut les gens.